In a very mysterious village, nestled among dense and sinister forests, lived the Colton family. On Halloween night, everything began. Jacob Colton, the father of the family, decided to entertain his children with a special story. He told them about a legend that said every 50 years, the village was visited by a strange entity, the Shadow. This shadow had the power to resurrect the dead, turning them into malevolent zombies. The curse of the shadow held the souls of the dead in the realm of darkness, and they ruthlessly hunted the living. On that Halloween night, during the tale, candles throughout the house were lit, and the wind whispered piercing words in an unknown language. The children became agitated, their hearts beating faster, and Jacob smiled, knowing that the mysterious atmosphere would enhance his story. Suddenly, all the lights went out, and mournful groans could be heard intermittently. The children panicked, trying to find shelter. But invisible forces already had a grip on them. In screams and tears, they ended up in an unfinished building, rumored to conceal the Temple of the Shadow. Gothic candles placed around the room illuminated the darkness. Chill air seeped from the towering walls, and strange sounds permeated the atmosphere. From a distance, cries and moans of the deceased echoed. Everything inside suffocated the spirit and appeared horrifying. Suddenly, the words uttered by Jacob opened the entrance to the temple. Terror gripped the children, as they felt they were no longer alone. Then, before them, the apparition of their long-deceased mother appeared, pale, with black, mesmerizing eyes. She whispered softly, "Run, children. It's the Shadow." In horror, the siblings clasped hands and rushed through the dark corridors of the temple, where they encountered a multitude of zombies. They had to overcome numerous traps, falling walls, crawling spiders, and shards of glass. When they thought they could run no more, they emerged into light. At the forest's edge, they witnessed the shadow devouring the entire village. The sounds of screams and the silhouettes disappeared into darkness. The children sobbed in despair, clutching onto their father's final words, "Run, don't look back." Since then, the village vanished from the face of the earth. Only the dense forest remained, bearing witness to a once thriving community. The legend of the shadow lingered in the hearts of those who survived, carrying their children away into an eternal realm of nightmares. And rumors persist that every 50 years, the shadow returns to claim even more human souls. Once upon a time, in a distant village, there lived an old woman who was known for her strange and eerie magic. She lived in an old house on the edge of the forest, and all the local residents were afraid of her. One day, as night fell on the village, the old woman went into the woods to gather herbs for her potions. But when she didn't return home, people started to worry. They went to look for her, but no one could find any trace of her disappearance. After a few days, strange and horrifying things began to happen in the forest. The villagers heard moans and screams, saw shadows gliding through the trees, and felt a cold touch on their shoulders. One night, when the moon was full, the village was gripped with fear. Ghosts and eerie figures began to emerge from the forest, and all the residents realized that the old woman had returned from the dead to seek revenge on them for her death. Since then, no one dared to venture into the woods after dark, and the old house stood empty and abandoned. Some say that even now, you can hear the moans and screams of the old woman wandering through the forest in search of vengeance. Once in a distant forest lived an old woman who was known for her magical abilities. She was considered a witch and many people were afraid of her. One night, when the darkness became very deep and quiet, she went for a walk in the forest. Suddenly she heard a rustle behind her and felt that she was being followed. She started running, but the further she ran, the louder the rustle became. Eventually, when she looked back, she saw her own shadow, which began to chase her. The old witch realized that it was a reflection of her own evil thoughts and actions that had finally caught up with her. She realized that the only way to get rid of this shadow was to acknowledge her mistakes and change her behavior. Since then, she became kinder and wiser, and the shadow no longer haunted her. The story teaches us that we should be mindful of our actions and thoughts, because they can come back to us at the most unexpected moment. We must be prepared for the fact that our actions can have consequences, both positive and negative. It is important to be conscious and responsible for our actions in order to avoid negative consequences.